Well, it certainly paints quite a scary scenario, the dark side of technology, if you will, and we have been seeing such incidents time and again, and that certainly puts all social media payment in quite a tricky spot. But how can you ensure that your financial data is not being leaked in the various corners of technology and internet that's available? To talk about that, I am being joined by Ritesh Bhatia of We4Web Cyber Security. He's the founder and director with Cybercrime Investigations. Ritesh, thank you so much for joining in on this discussion on the Money Show. Ritesh, let's start off first with the entire debit card, credit card sale, right? I mean, on the dark web, imagine there is Mubina Kapasi, you have my PIN number, my OTP, my mobile number, the card number, everything being leaked for a meager $100. That's certainly a very scary scenario. How exactly does this happen? I mean, how do these individual entities get data access, and that too, as per reports, 13 lakh Indian credit and debit cards?
So Mubina, let me tell you, there are three ways of, of the fraudster getting details of this. One is if there is a breach from the bank itself. So there could be breaches from, various banks, and then they, collate it and then they sell it over the dark web. But here in this case, it is a case of skimming, which means, and why I say this with confidence is because, the hacker has mentioned that he's got the track 2 details of each and every card. What does the track 2 data means? If we look at our credit or debit card over here, what we see, the magnetic strip which is there, it holds a lot of the data. So that is the track 2 data. Now with this data, you can just clone your card also. How do they get it? We go to these standalone ATMs and all, and then, those hackers or the fraudsters, they put skimmers over there. So the moment we put our card over there, this entire track 2 data gets kind of copied into a small chip. That is one way. The other way is when we go to, use our credit cards or debit cards on point of sale machines, those POS devices. So most of, many times people still swipe it. We need to say no to swipe. It has to be a dip. And hence it's very important that our cards which are there should be having a chip over here, and we need to dip that chip and not swipe the stripe. So this is how, so what happens is people put skimmers on the POS devices or on the ATM machines, and hence all the data gets copied. And this is how the data is collated, and then it is sold on the dark web. Mubina.
That's very interesting data point, something that all of y'all should use. Don't swipe, but dip the card. And to ensure that you can actually dip your card, you should have the golden chip like Ritesh was, just showing on the card. That in turn would enable the payment. Very important advice, and a very useful piece of advice as well coming in. So Ritesh, if I want to check that, if my card details are actually have been disclosed or has been compromised of sorts on the dark web, is there a way that I can do so? I mean, do I have to talk to my bank? How can I do that?
You need to talk to your bank. There is nothing that you can do. As of now, you got to be extremely paranoid, and you got to think that yours is one of the card, because when I was looking at the dumps, I could see that those are mostly those platinum cards and titanium. These are more of the high-end cards, and hence he's selling it for $100 each, because the limits of those cards are in lakhs of rupees. So it's extremely important right now that you go and tell your bank, listen, you just disable my card, and definitely quote this case, otherwise they will just charge you unnecessary. Tell them it is a high chance that even my card data has been compromised. So here's my debit card, here's my credit card, please replace this, or issue me a new one. Meantime, by the time the new one comes, what you need to do is go to the net banking and disable your international spending. Assuming that you're not going anywhere abroad, you're not going to use your card on any of the foreign websites and all, kindly disable it, or minimum at least limit your transactions through your net banking, or through the, you can just limit your transactions. So let's say if this card has a 5 lakh limit, please for the moment just bring it down to as low as 10,000 or 5,000 or 20,000, as per whatever your risk capacity is. Mubina.
So basically, you go to your bank folks and tell them that, listen, disable my card, reduce the limit, etc., and cite this case of cards being put up for sale, or else they will charge you. Technically, they should not charge you if there has been a compromise of data of this kind. And yes, cut down your international limit, cut down your spending limit. That as well is a great way. You know, Ritesh, I should have actually posed this question to you right at the beginning of the conversation, but I think it was also important to tell our viewers what should you do, you know, to ensure that your card details are not leaked. But what exactly is the dark web then, where all of this data is available for sale?
Okay, the internet that we use is actually called as the surface net or the surface web, which means that everything that you can see through a normal browser like Safari, Chrome, Firefox and all. For the dark web, these are websites which don't end in the normal domain like .com and .in and .net. These end in like .onions, and to use these particular websites you need a special Tor browser. And once you log on to over here, once you download a Tor browser and go over there, you will get like mostly like 80% of it is all the dark activities like drugs and all these illicit things and card data and exploits and whatnot. So it's definitely not a recommended place just to go and visit also. But this is where all the hackers come up, and that is because of the great deal of anonymity it provides, and hence most of the hackers post such kind of data up on the dark web.
Okay, well, I think that the fact that the name is dark web itself is pretty scary. So I'm pretty sure none of us will be logging on to the dark web anytime soon. But yes, folks, some very interesting tips and recommendations on how you can protect your card details and your card data. One important tip was ensure your card has a chip, not the magnetic stripe. Don't swipe, but dip in. And of course, go to your bank and tell them, disable this card, give me a new card, cut down the limits. They should not charge you because you can cite this case of card details being put up for sale on the dark web. That's one part. Unfortunately, Ritesh, we are staring at yet another cybercrime, and that has come in the form of Pegasus. It's an Israeli spyware software. Sounds very complicated. The name is Pegasus. It sounds almost like a James Bond film's enemy. But yeah, what exactly does this spyware software do?
Okay, so Pegasus is a mobile spyware. The only thing that is like very different about it is its technical capabilities of getting installed. Like there are, let me tell you that since it's been like 5 to 10 years, there are already mobile spywares in the market for as low as 3,000 or 4,000. But for that, I need physical access to the device. Here, what makes Pegasus very different is just by giving a missed call over VoIP, it gets installed. It can self-destruct itself the moment you try to do forensics about it. And Pegasus, and in fact the other mobile spywares, why I'm specifically talking about other mobile spywares, because viewers, you might be thinking, okay, the Pegasus software was installed only for the high profile people, but mind you, there are other mobile spywares which I'm not saying the government, but maybe your boss or the spouses or anybody else can use it to monitor you. So please, and what all these spywares can do, each and every incoming SMS of yours, which also includes OTP, is over there. They can read each and every contact of yours. Some of us have a habit of saving our Aadhaar numbers and even credit and debit card numbers in our contacts. We also sometimes take the photographs of our identity cards or even of our credit or debit cards, and we save it in the gallery. So it can also access your gallery. It can access, it can just switch on your mobile camera just by a very small command, and that's it. It can just take a picture of the surrounding. It can also take sounds of the surroundings. It can take screenshots every few seconds also. So whatever you're doing, even if you're entering a password, it can see that. So we need to be careful that mobile spywares are on the rise. It's just not one Pegasus, but there are many others also.
So Ritesh, in light of that, you have so many methods of social media payment, right? And because Pegasus, etc., is currently out there in the realms of technology, in the realms of our phones, would you recommend that for now maybe we should take a back seat when it comes to all these new methods of social media payment?
Mubina, currently, you know, if you ask me, currently the state that we are in now, it's pretty dangerous because the kind of spying that's happening, and I'm saying I'm not talking about the government spying or the Pegasus and all those. I'm generally also saying even the apps that we download, we give it a permission of our gallery and our contacts and all. These are all able to take our data. So we need to be very, very prudent. We need to be like, you know, we need to apply common sense as to what we are doing. If you really don't know technology well, if you're not handling your mobile phone and you're not securing it completely, then might as well please don't use it. And in case if you want to use it, please understand that all these apps that you have, limit the number of apps you download, and the ones that you download, don't give them, like, you know, blindly give them permissions about anything. For example, a cab aggregator app like an Uber or Ola, it doesn't require access to your camera, for example. Of course, they don't ask also, but you know, we just need to apply such kind of common sense when we download an app. Does this app require access, let's say, to my contacts? Why? We need to ask these questions to ourselves. So we need to like really self-educate ourselves.
Okay, well, you know, it's just sometimes very simple, right? When your app asks you permission to access X, Y, and Z, you just say accept, 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 and move on. Well, it's time to change that very easy attitude and habit that you do have. And yeah, you know, Ritesh, sometimes it gets difficult because, like Avan said, you know, a mobile phone has literally become like your 11th finger. But I suppose as times change, it calls for a change in habits as well. Ritesh, it was a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for educating our viewers then on these topics. I think they really needed it. Remember, even when you are accessing a public computer, be it perhaps in an airport or a cafe, and you're using a Wi-Fi that's available to many other people and not just you, do not access financial data. Do not log into your net banking, make payments to, etc. Ritesh, I believe you have a point to make as well here.
Yeah, one final point.
Sure.
You know, this is what we've been saying time and again, but unfortunately, people are not understanding this. Whenever you are dipping your card in the ATM or you're entering a PIN, please, when you enter the PIN, cover those fingers or the keypad with another one. Don't feel ashamed or embarrassed or anything. Even when you do it at the petrol pumps, on the point of sale devices, so that, because what is happening even on ATMs and all, even if they manage to swipe, they manage to skim your card, at least they won't be able to see your PIN, and that makes the job of the hacker extremely difficult. So please ensure that you cover the keypads with your other hand. That's all, Mubina.
Okay, all right. Very interesting data points. I hope you guys have taken a note of all of this. Even if not, this conversation will be available on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. But make sure that your phone is not affected by Pegasus before you go to access all of your data. Thank you, Ritesh, for joining in.